Okay. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to our community conversation. My name is Ryan Estrellado, and I'm the Director of Data Programs at the Office of Cradle-to-Career Data. I'm excited about our session that we have for you today, which is on workforce data expansion. I'll get started on the content in just a moment, but before we do that, I've got some housekeeping items I want to review. Okay. So first thing, the meeting is being recorded, and we'll make that available after the meeting is done on our YouTube page, our Cradle to Career YouTube page. And we'll also post it on our Cradle to Career site. That's in our meetings and community conversation pages. That'll be posted after the meeting in the coming days, and you'll see the link here in the first bullet of the slide for the webpage. Second, it's really important for us that we have our meetings available in all the languages needed in our audience and in our community. Today's meeting is going to be closed caption enabled. To turn on the captions, click the three dots on the far right at the bottom of your screen and select captions. And you can also select your preferred language by launching the CC button at the bottom of your screen. And as in previous meetings, we're also glad to once again have Spanish interpretation services offered for our session today, with a big thanks to Mark Gutierrez for joining us this afternoon. And I'm going to turn it over to Mark for some instructions on how to enable interpretation. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll provide those instructions in Spanish first for the benefit of our Spanish-speaking audience. Muy buenas tardes a todos que nos acompañan. Queremos dejarles saber que tenemos interpretación a vivo disponible para la sesión de hoy. En breve aparecerá un icono de un globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de su pantalla que dice Interpretation o Interpretación. Selecciónelo y de ahí seleccione su idioma, Spanish o español, y podrá escuchar el programa enteramente en su idioma. And for those listening in English, in the event that there's a Spanish comment or question, you can hear a live interpretation of it by selecting the globe icon that will appear momentarily at the bottom of your screen. It says interpretation. You can select it and then select your language, English, and you'll be able to hear a live rendering of it. Thank you, Ryan. Back to you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it as always. Today's meeting is in Zoom in webinar mode. So that means that participants are muted, but we do invite our audience to ask questions in the chat, and also specific questions about the data story, about the content workforce data today that you'd like to ask. We invite you to put that in the question and answer functionality so that we can make sure to see that and answer those questions and assign it to the right person. I'm going to do a quick check-in here with Angelique because I'm seeing some messages that maybe chat isn't working. Do we need to stop and check? Okay, I'll take that to mean that chat is working fine, but if at any point
Check now.
you need to stop, okay. Shall I type in?
It should be working now.
Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, so continuing on, I want to highlight that we are also using, as we have in our past meetings, our community guidelines that we've created to guide today's meeting. And you'll see the link to that on the slide here in the fourth bullet. And the reason why we use these is to foster a brave and respectful shared space. And we appreciate your commitment in helping us to create that community today. Okay, so now we're going to learn a little bit about each other, especially for folks who are new to these meetings, or if this is your first one. I'll start a little bit about what the Office of Cradle to Career is and what it is that we do. The Office of Cradle to Career was named in state legislation to be California's source of actionable data and research on education, economic, and health outcomes for individuals, families, and communities. C2C has been envisioned to be the most inclusive data system of its kind in the nation, and we aim to accomplish that with three approaches. The first is community engagement, which informs the development, the interpretation, and awareness about our data system. The second is our work on tools to support college and planning and transition. And then finally is our work to build an analytic data set on education and job outcomes. And also for more information, we have an infographic about C2C available on the link in the slide. That is a link directly to our C2C informational one-pager. Okay, that's a little bit about us. Now we'd love to learn about you. We hold these community conversations to have a direct line of conversation with the public. And as in any conversation, we want to get to know who our audience is, who we're engaged in conversation with. So we'll invite you to do that now with some questions. We have 4 questions, and we're going to be using the chat today. So I'm going to count backwards from 3, and we're going to go for this first one. What is your name, the organization you represent, and where are you joining us from? So that for me, that would be Ryan Estrellado, Cradle-to-Career, and I'm calling in from San Diego today. So everybody get your typing fingers ready and warmed up. We're gonna go 3, 2, 1, go. And while folks are introducing themselves in the chat, we'll also show the second question here so you can start thinking about it. This is great. Welcome, everybody. Okay. If you have already introduced yourself in the chat, take some time to read it over and then start reflecting on the second one. Is this your first community conversation? What are you most looking forward to today? When you are ready, share in the chat. Is this your first community conversation? And what are you most looking forward to today? Welcome, Jason. It's Jason's first one. Welcome. A lot of repeat visitors. Welcome back. Let's look at the third question. Can get a little bit closer to today's content to get your wheels turning about workforce data. I love this question. What was your first job? And if you're up to it, a secondary, this is not required, but I think it's fun. What lessons did you learn there that you carry with you today? What was your first job? And if you want to, what lessons did you learn there that you carry with today? I'll read some examples: selling medical software, newspaper delivery, city recreation department, soccer referee. Oh, yes, soccer referee, one of the hardest customer services jobs on the planet. Okay, keep those coming. It's really nice to meet all the new folks, see folks who have been to previous events come to this one also, see you return, and also have y'all share a little something about yourself, especially as it relates to work. So please keep them coming. I think it helps us be together in community as we start this conversation. We'll go on to the next slide. Okay, so here's what we have planned for today. There are 5 things on the agenda. First, I'll give a brief update on what's happened with Cradle-to-Career since we last saw you. Items 2 and 3 are going to be the most topical for today's, where we're going to spend most of our time. That's going to be a conversation about workforce and labor data, also workforce data expansion priorities. And then, of course, because this is a conversation, there will be time for question and answer before our final item, which is closing. So I'll go ahead and get started on Cradle-to-Career updates. Okay, so a few updates. First, if you've been following our work, and especially our advisory board meetings, you'll know that there have been some changes in the proposal process uh, and also in the public proposal process. So recall that once a year, we start a cycle of proposals where our advisory board members present proposals for ideas for improvements in the data system. Part of that process is proposals from the public that our advisory board members may choose to adopt and present. The public proposal process is started on our website, where you can submit your ideas, which may be adopted and sponsored by the advisory board members. It's live now. The public proposal process runs from April 1st to May 1st, and you can learn more at the link in the first sub-bullet of the first bullet on this slide. In addition to that, I'm happy to preview that this year's advisory board applications open on April 28th. So recall that every year, a third of our data and tools and community engagement advisory board members end their terms, and then we begin looking for new members to engage the work. So in advance of the applications opening, we'll be hosting another community conversation meeting, so one just like this, except for it will be all about advisory board applications and how to do them. That community conversation event is happening in 3 weeks on April 24th. If you're interested in applying for advisory board seat, then that is your first step to attend that community conversation. More exciting news. Yesterday, Governor Gavin Newsom unveiled the California Master Plan for Career Education, which is a statewide effort to connect Californians to better paying jobs with or without a degree. And the master plan names our office Cradle-to-Career, and we look forward to collaborating with California's leaders to support this effort in the coming months. And then the final update before we turn it over to the main part of our time together. We're pleased to share that our first public tool, the Student Pathways Data Story, is launching soon. Student privacy and the security of the data system are our utmost priority, and so we're excited to be able to share with you all a data story that meets those needs, and on top of that, connects with the California public about the stories of folks going from education into workforce. You'll find more information about the launch soon, and we encourage you to follow us on social media and also to sign up for our email, which is the best place to get the updates. You can do that on our website. Okay, those are the updates. I am now going to hand it over to Eric Flores, Deputy Director of Legislative Affairs, to kick off our conversation. Over to you, Eric.
Great, thanks, Brian. Really nice to be with everyone today, and appreciate the time and the investment and engagement with the Office of C2C. So I'm going to give an overview that may be familiar to some and less familiar to others, but I just want to start with kind of the planning process and set the context for why we're engaging with workforce and labor data right now. Why does it matter? What does that mean for the data system? So during that planning process, state agency representatives, community members, all came together to recommend that the analytical data set that we're building include information on training to deepen how we understand the way adults prepare for jobs and identify how education and workforce training relate to employment and relate to earnings. And we're really pleased that after the creation of the data system, we've ingested data from 9 providers, and we've been able to expand our attention subsequently to build that more robust picture of Californians' lived experiences. So looking towards collaboration with California's Labor and Workforce Development Agency, we're trying to gain a more holistic shared understanding of the steps that we need to collaborate towards that understanding of outcomes for people who participate in workforce programs. So this has really been built out by a memo from Labor Secretary Stuart Knox, who shared the labor agency's priorities when voluntary new data for potential ingestion into Cradle-to-Career. So what we're working towards through this process is this shared understanding of those priority research questions that really could be answered if that additional information was linked with what exists already in the C2C data system. So we're trying to understand what those data points would be and what that necessary process is going to entail to answer some of those questions that my colleague Judy Chan will kind of go over today. We're really excited about this opportunity. It's building towards a more inclusive and comprehensive data system. C2C's fundamental founding was around insights into early care, education, and work. And the reality that we want to explore and honor is the fact that not every Californian goes into public higher education in an academic context and then into the workforce. So we really want to build a data system that understands the journey of tens of thousands of people in the state, from apprenticeships to other forms of job training, and be able to link that data with truth on those pathways and experiences. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this is also just kind of to also level set for, okay, while we're really excited and we have momentum around this process, what does it actually look like to get onto track to continue to meet that charge that's inherent in cradle to career, right? And really being engaged on the career component of that with this data. So these are the next steps around data ingestion and what that means for the work we have to do. Legal agreements and existing collaboration with labor agency already exists. But what does this look like moving forward, right? So, as a caveat here, Cradle-to-Career itself does not collect information. This potential collaboration does not add additional kinds of reporting requirements for employers or workforce development providers or for individuals themselves. But it looks at what we're aiming to ingest in terms of existing data that already is at labor agency that would be new to us at Cradle-to-Career. So the first step of that we're looking at is file creation once we have these collaborative discussions, and that's a process where labor agency would work with our internal C2C infrastructure and program teams to create those file specifications. So that's why you're looking at this flow chart of kind of the actual internal data structures here. So these are used to capture the data elements of the participation agreement, that legal document that maps out the data as it exists in the original data provider systems. Often there's no clear one-to-one mapping of what's specified as a data element in the participation agreement. And that reality sort of complicates the work of creating that unified longitudinal data set. So that's, one of those things that we're looking forward to working on and sorting through right now. And then, of course, there's kind of the file transmission and ingestion, which is really important to us to elevate the safety and security checks and moving those files through into actual data warehousing. So our team, then subsequently looks at kind of the data quality and the data match pieces that goes from this new collaboration into the resulting linked P20W. So, all of that to kind of say is, while we're really excited about this opportunity to add this really significant new perspective to the P20W, this is without question the largest proposed expansion of new data into Cradle-to-Career. We're still operating under constraints around both the current capacity of our budget and, of course, staff capacity at labor agencies. So, we're really responding now to super powerful feedback from the community around data that would make a really significant impact on understanding additional parameters around job quality and job opportunity, things like hours worked and type of occupation. But those, unfortunately, are the kinds of elements that would require an expansion of the base wage file. So the state's underlying unemployment insurance database, and undertaking that is just not within the scope of the work we're pursuing at the moment. But what this does really give us the opportunity to do is more clearly and articulately display data in a way that is going to make sense to families, to policymakers, to researchers, to the folks that are on this call here, to create that groundwork that more clearly closes some of those information gaps that do exist. And so we're really excited to kind of turn it over now to Judy Chan to walk through, what that shared understanding looks like, what the next steps are, and how all of you can be really engaged. So really appreciate the time to kind of do some of that level setting and share that excitement that the office has with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you for that overview, Eric. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Judy Chan, and I'm the Deputy Director of Digital Services at C2C. So over the last several months, we've been running a public task force on the expansion of the data system to include workforce elements, and that speaks to the W in the P20W system. So we use the opportunity during these meetings to discuss priority research questions and the associated data points that LWDA is willing to contribute to the data system. We also gathered input on data from additional sources, as well as potential visualizations for future dashboards. The memo that Secretary Knox shared with C2C that was mentioned by Eric served as a starting point for these discussions. But even prior to that, it was based on a lot of work with individual departments, a lot of work with individual departments. So linking the data will help deepen our understanding of how adults prepare for jobs and connect how education and workforce training relate to employment and earnings. It will also help us answer very important and pressing questions for Californians. So I'll walk through some of the priority research questions from LWDA that was captured in the memo. Next slide, please. But before I get to that, I'd like to highlight a few ways that you can get involved. We know that sometimes there are limited ways to provide input, so we hope that you'll use today's time today to provide meaningful feedback. We have an interactive activity later on today where we'd like to hear from you, but throughout the conversation, you can use the Q&A function to pose questions or provide responses to questions from speakers. You also have the option of providing written comment to info@c2c.ca.gov. And as a reminder, we have our final task force meeting on April 10th, and we invite you to tune in for that. Next slide, please. So I want to level set a bit. So when it comes to workforce data, people often have different ideas for what it means. The term workforce includes many different concepts, including classes that teach job-specific skills, non-academic training, that prepares people for work, outcomes for people who participate in education and training or receive public services. It also includes information such as economic factors that shape which jobs are in high demand and how much they pay. Next slide. So the first set of questions from LWDA has to do with understanding education and employment outcomes from people who participate in workforce programs and comparing that to comparing people who did and did not receive training, people who never participated in a workforce program, and understanding how results compare to programs offered by other agencies, and if there's a multiplier effect from participating in multiple programs. The next slide. The next set of questions focus on how workforce training, workforce program participation relates to other experiences an individual may have. So both before and after they participate in that workforce program, such as their educational attainment, where they go to school, how much educational debt they incur, whether they engage in service learning, if they receive public benefits, how much their earnings change, if they appear to be progressing along their career pathways, and also the type of place that they work. The third set of questions is about the impact of workforce program participation, including an individual's return on investment, whether there's a correlation between participation and regional economic growth, if there's a reduced need for public benefits, how employers benefit, and whether programs are aligned with the skills that employers need. And the final set of priority questions focuses on specific populations. So LWDA is particularly interested in opportunity youth, people who are justice involved, and those who get various types of public benefits. And for all of the questions mentioned, LWDA also indicated that they want to disaggregate the data to look at various factors or multiple factors at the same time, including demographics, regions, industries, specific workforce programs, and whether people also received public services. So that was a brief review of LWDA's priority research questions for the inclusion of workforce data and the questions that they would like to answer. We're still in the early stages of exploring what's possible for the data system, and there are numerous steps that will need to happen before data can be brought in. So for more information about the task force, including the report out, recordings, the memo with the specific data points, you can visit our task force page because that has a lot of resources there. And again, April 10th is our last task force meeting. We invite you to tune in. So that was a lot of information, but I hope that that got you thinking because we want to use the rest of our time together to hear from you. So as members of the public, you have influenced our products. So we have a few questions we'd like you to think about and respond to. So please use the chat function to type in your answers to the next set of questions. Okay. So actually, let's see if I see that there are things in the chat. So I just want to.
We have one question about whether there will be a final report at the end of the month after the task force are done.
Yes, there will be. So we have one more meeting to go, and after that, the recommendations from the task force will be published on our website and shared with our board, of course. Okay, so the first question starts with a statement. Available workforce programs and training effectively prepares us for joining the workforce. Agree or disagree, and why? So if you can, as Ryan calls it, prepare your typing fingers. We'd love to see your response in the chat. Okay, I see some agree. And why is that? Can you tell me a bit more? Others feel free to chime in too. Seems that people tend to be, okay, I see some more. I think people needed just a few more moments to get their answers in. I see agree. Economic mobility is particularly hard to access for vulnerable populations. I think that the part we get the results of the efforts we put in, it's a gap in systems access awareness that limits us. Okay. Any more thoughts on that? I also see another response here that says some existing available workforce programs do prepare folks for joining the workforce, especially when tailored to specific populations and meet them where they are, helping them access information to prepare for environments they may or may not have access to. Okay, so thank you for that. That's helpful. And then let's move on to the second question. So where do you go for information about workforce programs? And where do you go for information about the outcomes of people who participate in workforce programs? So if you're able to, please share a story. We'll start with where do you go for information? Share some of the sources that you go to. Where would you look for more information about outcomes or about the workforce programs itself? And I'll give you a few more moments to respond, and I'll monitor the chat for responses. Okay, colleagues, experts, research. Anywhere else? Are there public sources? I see the internet for information on programs, U.S. Department of Labor, the career centers, reports from professional associations, research, regional board websites, launch board, workforce programs, okay, community organizations. Okay, great. These are all very good responses, but I'd like to hear a bit more about that. So where has this been done well? And what has been helpful when trying to access information about workforce programs? And then alternatively, where has it been frustrating? Also see there are additional responses coming in about library programs, nonprofits, EDD, and school programs. To the previous question, but if you can think about where, what has been helpful when trying to access information, please share that. Okay. I see it's helpful is that some states have done created dashboards with results of training programs that are simple, easy to use, and easy to understand. It's great. Any other good examples of where it's been done well? LAOs, analyses, okay. Graduate success, cost info about time commitment, days and times. Okay, I see. Stephanie, it worked well when nonprofit organizations that serve similar populations worked together, provided warm handoffs to provide wraparound services. It wasn't easy when they began competing for participants, increased their numbers and not sharing important information. So that's a frustrating point. I guess it's both. It's helpful, but then became frustrating. Okay, the college scorecard from the U.S. Department of Education. Okay, so those are great examples. If you can think of more ways in which it has been great examples of where it's been done well or where it's been frustrating, like please continue to type in the chat with that information. So the third question we have is, so what we found in our work was that the area where the public was most able to give input on and shape was how information is being communicated back. And we want to know, how do you learn best? So think about a time that you're presented a dashboard to explore. How did you uncover how to use it? So, for example, do you prefer learning to be self-directed or through a webinar? Self-directed with reference documents, okay? Any other thoughts about that? Okay, I see it depends. Sometimes self-directed, sometimes webinars if it's complex, webinars okay, short on-demand resources. depending on the type of information, discussions when needed. Okay. So keep it coming. Tell me more, because I'm seeing a lot in here. That's really helpful. And this will help us design and build with you all in mind. We'll be leveraging a user-centered design, and we can create personas based on some of the things that you've shared with us. Okay, I see some more about being shown the dashboard and features, and then followed by a chance to use. So a little bit of a hands-on learning. Okay. Okay, so what I see is that it's a little bit of a combination. So a little bit of direction, but then also a chance to explore yourselves. Okay. Okay, and I also see that Sujin added that if it's a dashboard, simple graphics are helpful. Great. Okay. Next question. So while the public tools that include workforce data are still a bit far out in the future, like when it becomes available, how do you want to how do you want to interact with the data? What do you want to be able to do? And what questions would you like answered? And again, I'll give you some more time to think about that.
Judy, while folks are writing, I can help read out some of these responses. Christian says call out boxes within the dashboard when using for the first time is helpful. I think that was a response to question 3. And then there's a response for question 4, longitudinal data, population served, income of current jobs, projections of workforce. Another response, I'd like to see regional info on the gaps between current job demand and supply. Displaying different career paths, occupations, industries in a clear way. If you do include median income, including if it's per capita. Sujin says, I'd like to be able to understand the types of programs and activities that are most effective and be able to understand for whom, demographics, region, sector, etc., and then choose different options for outcomes. Being able to slice across different dimensions, physical location, demographics, sector, occupations, etc. These are really great, y'all. Thank you so much for sharing exactly the type of neat information that we need to be able to identify themes in future products. Stephanie says, I would like to see longitudinal studies that provide insight around, number 1, access. What do students have access to and what they did not have access to? Successes academically in other programs, barriers academically, and ability to participate in other programs. 3, college-related activities and funding, and 4, workforce development, etc. Sujin adds, would also like to understand participation rates and numbers. Aggregated data by generation and status.
Okay, these are all really, really helpful. So if you have more thoughts, keep them coming our way. We'll make sure to capture all of your feedback. But maybe we should move on to the next question for now. Okay, great. Next question. So engagement is really important. Who do we need to hear from to make sure we build effectively? Are there particular groups or people that we need to engage with or reach out to? And make sure I'm involved in the process? Okay, I see students and parents and guardians. Stephanie says the community, families, educators, professionals providing service are the priority. Sujin says the target audience, education training providers, policymakers, civic leaders and their staff. I see Roy says industry experts, state agencies, local agencies, colleges, high school districts, and advocates. Christian says industry and participants, workforce program data is helpful, but long-term outcome is what adds the most value. I see researchers, employers, media. And okay, that leads us to our last question. How do we make sure we're reaching the right stakeholders? What is the right way to engage folks? So Sujin also added philanthropy. Lauren says the K-12, K-16 education collaboratives be a great group to engage. Great. Who's not at the table? What community do you not hear from? Is there a right way to engage folks? So if you can provide some thoughts about that, I'd love to hear from you.
Do you mean like surveys versus in person versus other ways?
Yep. How do we make sure that we capture the groups that were listed earlier? Or it could be methods, or it could be making sure that we hear from people by engaging in a particular way, for instance, like on social media or mailings, or other thoughts about making how we should ensure that we get the right people and their input.
Sujin has a suggestion: identify who you want to use the tool that you haven't heard from yet and reach out directly. Roy adds framing around problem solving and empowering workforce pathways for all Californians. Stephanie adds, get to know the community culturally, positive attribute and barriers. Get involved in community-centered events from local, well-respected organizations and groups. Best way to immerse yourself among folks you want to hear from. Storytelling and narrative is powerful. And Sujin adds, could target organizations that represent those target populations, like PTA for parents, great idea, Cal Chamber for businesses, etc.
I guess that's it. So thank you so much for providing all of your feedback. All of this is really helpful because it helped us design and build with you all in mind. This is not going to be the last time we want to hear from you. So there'll be many opportunities to provide input about how this information should be communicated as we get closer to actually having the data in the system.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Thank you, Eric. Thanks, everybody in the audience. We'll now progress to in our last 10 minutes here, Q&A if there are any additional questions, and then we'll proceed to closing after that. So first,
Sorry,
let me.
Ryan, there's still one more slide about
Oh,
next.
there is? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Okay, I can cover this quickly. So there are still a number of steps that need to happen before data can be brought in. And first is the governing board will need to take action for a vote to bring in the data points that the labor agency intends to provide. It will be the largest expansion of the data system to date, and it will happen at our May 9th governing board meeting. After that, we will then engage and work collaboratively with the data experts at each of the LWDA departments to create file specifications. And these, the purpose of those documents is that it specifies how the data must be prepared and formatted for import into the data system. And then based on direction from C2C's governing board about prioritization of work for the office, we'll establish a timeline for the actual import. So that's just to say, stay tuned for more. Now you can talk about the Q&A, Ryan.
Thank you, and sorry again for stepping on your slide. Okay, so now that you have had a chance to take part in the conversation and you know your next steps, now we can proceed in the last 8 minutes to any additional questions, and then we'll proceed to closing. So first, I will ask. I know there's been a lot of conversation already, but we want to make sure that we reserve additional time. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat or in the Q&A. I'm going to wait just a few seconds here and give you all some time, some thinking time. Okay, if you happen to be typing a question, please continue to do so. I am going to start to close this up, but just know if I see a question come through. Oh, here's one from Roy. Apologies for asking again, but is there a date this month that the public can expect the report, sorry?
So like I mentioned earlier, last task force meeting is on April 10th. We typically publish the report outs soon after each meeting. So once the task force members have finalized and agreed on the final recommendations that they want to present to the board, we will publish that. So I would guess middle of the month or shortly after that, it would be available. However, that is an estimation, but there will also be an opportunity to hear about those specific recommendations at our May governing board meeting, in case you want to tune into that as well.
Which, by the way, is May 9th, correct? May 9th governing board meeting. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Roy, for the question. If there are other questions, please keep typing them. I promise if I'm in the middle of the close, I will jump right back to it. But I will start to close this up because we're near the end here. And most of all, I just want to thank everybody for taking the time, especially during your lunchtime, to join us. These conversations are really important to us. We talk about user-centered design all the time. But I think it's useful to point out that what we did today is what it looks like to have user-centered design happen. There are so many points of view that we don't have as an office if we're just engaging in conversation with ourselves and having ideas come out from our brain and onto the page. And so these conversations and chances for you to share with us your points of view are critical and become the fuel for how we develop the products that we make for the public. So I can't thank you enough. It's really important, and I'm so appreciative that y'all made the time. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can email us at the email address on this slide, info@c2c.ca.gov. And of course, to stay up to date on future products, future meetings, and updates from the office, the best way to do that is to sign up for our email. And you can find that link on the slide also, c2c.ca.gov/ways-to-get-involved. And with that, I'm going to do one last check for questions. I don't see any in the Q&A, and I'm not seeing any new ones in the chat. And so I want to thank everybody again, and can give you back 5 minutes to enjoy the rest of your lunch, and we'll see you next time, which I hope will be at the next community conversations about advisory board applications. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, Mark. Thank you.